Does anyone know if they have an OLED TV in their home? All right, so if you have an OLED TV in your home, you should know. They are upwards of $1,500 for a 50-inch, which is very expensive for a TV. And it's really important to know if you have that kind of TV, because you should be using the benefits and really taking in how good of a TV you actually have. So I have worked at Best Buy for 1.5 years, and so I chose this topic because I have educated a lot of people on OLEDs, and I think that more people should know about it, because actually every single one of you guys have probably interacted with an OLED today already. Almost every single cell phone out in 2022 has an OLED display on it, but we'll get into that later. My goal today is to help you guys understand what exactly an OLED is, the history of it, and the uses in today's technology. So, once again, we're going to be going over these things. So what does OLED stand for? OLED stands for organic light emitting diode. So OLED is actually different than a normal LCD TV in the way that each individual pixel is self-lit. Now this is really important actually, because say that this is your screen, and you have something like, so this is all black, and you're trying to make a perfect black background and a perfect white heart. So on an LCD, the entire back of that TV is going to be lit up, and then the pixels are going to change the actual color that's coming through. But if the entire back is lit up, it's impossible to reach a perfect black. In order to reach that perfect black, you actually have to turn off the individual pixel. So that is why it's important to have an OLED, because you're going to actually be able to get that very specific black to white. On an LCD, that white can actually start to bleed into the black, and you might have like a sort of gray fuzzy outline around there. Now, most things that we watch on TV, it's not going to be, black with a white object in the middle. But if you're watching something like a horror movie, getting that perfect black is going to be pretty important, so you can get that true color and get the best picture out of that. And so the authors at energy.gov in the Office of Energy wrote in 2022 that organic light emitting diode, those are self-lit, and they're the best because they are able to actually reach that perfect black, which a lot of us strive for in a TV. And a group of authors at the KIT Institute of Organic Chemistry wrote in January of 2021 that the difference between the OLED and the LCD is going to be important. But although it is technically the best because it reaches the best colors, LCD does have a little bit of an advantage. If you have a super bright room, you're not going to want to put an OLED in it, because think about if you're standing on a big football field and you have a whole bunch of people with like flashlights, it's not going to be as bright as if you have a floodlight, like if you had an entire backlight versus a bunch of individual self-lit pixels. So a LCD is actually going to be a brighter TV, but an OLED is going to be more precise. So the history of the OLED, you probably wouldn't think is going to be very interesting, but in my opinion it is. So Anyang Zhang from PubMed.gov stated in December of 2016, so between 1987 and 2001, Tang and Van Slyke, they worked for all of those years to try to get to the best picture quality. So they worked for almost 20 years to try to invent the OLED. They're the first ones to successfully do it, and they started allowing Kodak to use the screen in their cameras. So if you have an OLED screen on a camera, that is going to be pretty beneficial, because whenever you take a picture, you want the best quality on the screen so you can see what the picture actually looks like. So the manufacturing, the reason I wear my LG t-shirt today is because actually whenever these people created that TV, LG decided to buy out the rights for the panel. So that means that although a lot of other companies use the OLED panel, they all have to source from LG, which makes LG's a little bit cheaper, and everyone else is a little bit more expensive. So this was actually highlighted in a legal case in 2018, and the written documentation was by Caroline Hahn, but it's caused some sort of controversy, because if you're going out and buying a TV, a lot of people will say like, oh, LG is going to be better because they actually manufacture the panel. That's not necessarily the case, because they didn't actually create it, so it doesn't really matter anyways. So there are several different uses. So the authors at Energy Star, which is one of the largest energy companies in the world, wrote this year a list of every television company that used the panel. So that's going to be LG, Sony, Panasonic, Philips, Skyworth, Hisense, Konka, Changhong, and Grundig. So not every TV is built the same, so you can't just say like, oh, I have one OLED versus another OLED, they're going to be the same. You can't just compare them like that because each TV has its own processor, which is going to be giving different colors. So for example, Sony, they have an AI processor, which is really cool because it uses other pictures that it's already seen to produce a new picture. So if you're watching like an old Western film, it's going to help re-render that film so it looks a little bit better than how it was originally made. But like if you compare that to like one of the cheaper LG ones, the processor is just not going to be as good, so you're not going to get as best picture quality. But that's why there's like $1,000 difference between those two TVs. Also, refresh rate is going to be important, so that's just goes into like the motion of whatever you're watching. So phones actually use OLED too. So in 2022, Consumer Reports wrote a list of the iPhones with OLEDs in it. So that's going to be the X, the XS, the XS Max, the 11, the 11 Pro, and then any of the 12s, 13s, or 14s. So they've been using it for quite some time. And Samsung actually has started to use OLEDs in their flips and their folds, so those folding phones, because OLEDs are actually flexible, which is pretty interesting. And then also handheld gaming devices. So Nintendo released an OLED Switch this past year. So whether it's a TV, a Switch, a camera, etc., OLED is very important in today's technology and the technology of the future. I hope now the OLED panels, their history, and their applications are more clear than before, and that maybe you can start to pick out whenever you see an OLED panel in your life.